boy, what's up, you goddamn plebeians? It's your boy Neil with the Balding Plebs, and you know, if it's Hawk Every and Briareos, you know it's going to be a triggering video. So strap yourselves in, Monster Hunter fans, because we're about to get real with you. Nobody else is on YouTube saying it. We've got some things to say tonight about Monster Hunter Rise. First of all, I want to give a massive shout out to my main man, Hawk Every. Hawk, I haven't had a chance to chat with you in a while. It is great to have you back here on the channel. How you been?
Good.
Awesome.
Playing
Great.
plenty of Monster Hunter.
Awesome. Which one are you playing? You're playing Rise, you were just telling me, correct?
Yeah, I'm on my second playthrough.
Okay. And of course, you guys know if it's Monster Hunter, it's gotta be Briareos. Briareos, great to have you back here on the channel, my man. Great to reconnect with you.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think it's been since like 2018, 2019 since we've really had a chance to shoot the shit and interact and do a little video together.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And now, Briareos, you had reached out to me and said you wanted to have a discussion about Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter World, and kind of discuss some things that maybe the Monster Hunter Dick Rider channels aren't talking about.
Yeah, looking online, everybody just was praising it. I know it's a Monster Hunter game, but they wasn't getting down to the meat of it and wasn't convincing me that, should I dive in? That's why I didn't get the Switch version. I was still taken aback of what the changes they were doing.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't going to be as challenging as World was.
Yeah. I thought Monster Hunter World to be a nice, so if you look at like the Monster Hunter games as like almost like a meal, right? When you sit down to devour a game like Monster Hunter, there's a lot to take in, right? For me, Monster Hunter World was like a beef roast, mashed potatoes, gravy, baby carrots, and all the fixins. And for me, Monster Hunter Rise felt like a cold turkey sandwich on soggy bread. That's my opinion. That was my experience with it. Hawk and I were just talking before we got into the discussion here, and I was telling him, I said, I kind of beat through all the way through Magnum Malo in a matter of a handful of hours. It wasn't really challenging. So, Hawk, your kind of thoughts on, give me your thoughts, because you're playing it right now. Give me your thoughts on Monster Hunter Rise. And you can be honest. You don't have to hate on it like we are. You can be honest about it.
Honestly, it's not too terrible. Like in World, you could basically play through all of lower and high rank and only hunt Puke and Anjanath twice and every other monster once. And by the end of Nergigante, you could be grinding him pretty easily within like 5-minute quests. In Rise, you could basically do the exact same thing in the village quests, which are made to be easier. But when you go to hub quests, you can do them solo in about 8 minutes.
Awesome. Now, Briareos, you want to talk about Rise. You kind of seemed like you were really getting down on it with me the other night. Give me your thoughts on that, because I do like to have an open discussion here, provided that if you say anything I don't agree with, you'll be okay with me doxing you on Twitter. I just want to make sure you understand that will happen.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't like is the arcade style of it. When I started hearing the characters talking every time they attacked, I hope you could cut that off.
Yeah, you can.
I'm not for that. And just making it too easy for the average, for the veteran hunter that, been around. And I like the skill, I like the challenge, I like the grind. It just wasn't, it had a feel of a Monster Hunter Try on the Wii. That was the game I like the life changes that it did, but I got all the way to the end game with just leather armor on in a week, and that's my fear. I like playing the game for a long time, especially with the Monster Hunter series, and if you could just blow through it like nothing, it's like it
Yeah.
doesn't give you the drive to go back.
Yeah, I noticed that basically with just simple green sharpness and ultra basic bitch armor, I was basically walking through every one of the village quests. That for me, on a difficulty scale, right? Coming from solo, no armoring, live, tempered Devil Joe with only one cart, coming from that and then going to Rise, it did kind of feel like a little bit of a difficulty letdown for me. Even though I was only playing the quests that were meant for single player, I still felt like it was a little bit phoned in.
Yeah, kind of like the Karen fights in World, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
That
no,
was
I remember those. Don't remind me. I remember those. Hawk, about how many hours would you say you have on Rise approximately?
Uh, including Sunbreak
Yeah.
that I played through, that's about 3,000. So about a quarter of what I've done with World.
Oh my God, you guys are marathon men when it comes to this shit, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's encouraging because I trust what Hawk says, and I needed to know what he thought about the game because me and him we played Monster Hunter World a lot, and I respect him as a gamer and I respect his opinion. So I was
Yeah.
needing somebody to validate should I make this purchase.
Yeah. Well, Hawk, you talk a lot about about having high hours here, and you talk about how you thought that it was pretty decent. Give me your thoughts then, as you move out of basically the ultra easy single player storyline into like basically the multiplayer quests, which is like the hub and stuff. What are your thoughts on the difficulty of that as you go forward, given both what the game launched with and the different title updates and stuff? Give us your thoughts on the difficulty of that, if you would.
Okay. I'd say hub quests are just slightly harder than village quests till you get to high rank.
Yeah, yeah,
And in high rank, they really only add in the Elder Dragons, the what I would call is the apex of apex monsters like Devil Joe, Rajang, and Basil. Sadly, Devil Joe didn't make it into the game for some reason. And the about Rise is that one thing that bothers me is that they have world monsters that have been basically introduced as a world only, like Anjanath, Puke, and they put them into Rise, even though their lore don't really agree with it.
yeah.
But getting back on difficulty, the rampages are, in my opinion, one of the best things about Rise. I know a lot of people dislike them, but I found it fun to just go up against waves of monsters and just get a bunch of materials, mainly rare materials, in return.
For those of us that haven't experienced a rampage, what can you just explain like how that works?
It's at the beginning, it's really just one area. You have 3 gates to defend, with the third being the strongest, and you have to use cannons, ballista, and eventually a machine cannon to drive away the monsters. Within the quest, you have to level up your fortress to deal more damage, unlock more placements, I guess you could call them, to better defend your fort.
So it's like a siege.
Yeah, it's kind
A
of like
siege quest.
Kulturov Stage 1, but there's only one path it takes.
Okay.
Well, Briareos, I know this was a big thing for you. This was one of the things for you that you and I kind of talked about back and forth a little bit, and that was the wire bug. You felt like, or at least as you expressed to me, you may feel differently now as you're hearing more about Rise. What you kind of expressed to me that the it's like an indie wrestling show. The flippy shit, the all over the place, flipping around and all that stuff kind of felt, I don't know, like almost like, I don't want to say like an easy mode, but that's kind of how you expressed it to me. Uh, is that accurate, or am I reading you wrong on that? Tell me, give me your.
Yeah, you're right on that. The thing is that I don't mind them having it, but if it makes it to where you can fight a monster much easier and escape attacks much easier, then that risk versus attack is gone, and that's usually the core element of a monster hunter. You can go in for the big move and risk of getting hit versus pulling it off.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm about to get hit, let me just quickly zip out the way, kind of like another form of evade. So and
Yeah.
if you can do it with every weapon, then once you master that, there's pretty much nothing you could come across that'll give you that fear of death, or fear of carding.
Yeah, my thing with World was, right. Like you could argue, well, you had the slinger, right? But the slinger never really lets you like flip up into the air and zip up out of harm's way. The slinger, sure, you could shoot flash pods and flash bugs. Feel free to correct me on any of this if I'm wrong. It's literally been 3 years now, guys, since I picked the game up. But it's you could. There was always kind of like that. Yeah, I could always just flash pod the monster if I need to, but now he's immune to flash pods because I've shot him with too many. So now what do I do?
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
some input from some other friends that played it. They all bought the Switch, got into it, and they wound up coming back to World. But I think they say when it was released, it was kind of like unfinished. It's like version 1. I think they say now we're getting it with version 10 with all the things that was making the game not play well. They kind of fixed all of that. But
Yeah.
they all came back to World because they said they didn't have much of a challenge, and I think the partying up with members, like the Garrening Hub, I'm not sure how that works. How you find members and stuff that might have played a part into that. But
Uh,
Yeah.
they didn't stress on, they say, one of my friends said it's more, Rise is more for people who just getting into Monster Hunter, like a beginner level, just to introduce them to the world and the mechanics before you get on to the harder stuff.
Hawk, your thoughts
I
on
would
that?
agree.
Okay.
I would agree.
Do you
But
think
one
Rise is Monster Hunter for babies?
partially, yeah, I find it a lot easier than World is.
I was going to ask you
But
difficulty rating, and
yeah, if I'd say like Iceborne is like, I guess an 8. I'd put Base Rise as like a 5, and Sunbreak as like a 7. So not too far off, but still easier.
Okay, that's a good number.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And going back to the wire bug thing that Bree talked about, it is catered to some weapons more than others for some moves. But like for me, my playthrough right now, I'm using the heavy bowgun, and your two main wire bug moves are a counter that uses both of them, so you won't be left over. So if you get attacked by a Tigrex charge and it turns around to come back at you, I have to do the counter attack, and if it doesn't stun Tigrex, I'm getting hit 100%, unless I completely miss. And the other move I get is just a kind of dodge, kind of like a great sword tackle, but I do get damaged a little bit, which that still can save me, but I gotta be very lucky with the placement.
Hey, let me ask you something. Let me just pick your brain on something here quick while we have you on call, Hawk. Is
Yeah.
there, because I can't really quite remember this, other than like the Jesus dive, is there any evade in Monster Hunter with the weapons, like roll or anything that gives you full iframes?
Other than the counterattacks, which dual blades, as I play a lot of, have a very good one. There is a new wirefall, which is the wirebug aim and the B button. You can, I believe, only do it. Actually, I think you might be able to do it whenever you want, but it uses up a wirebug and it can screw you in some moments.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, like you guys know how Tyrix has the charge and it can combo into the spin.
Yeah, where you can like charge forward, he'll come after you, and then like when he's done, he'll like do like the roar and the spin attack, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like using the wirefall, if you get hit by the charge and you try to use the wirefall to dodge out, you can be actually screwing yourself and get hit by the charge and the spin and completely one-shot you. So it is a strategic thing to do. So I will give Rise that for the wire bugs.
Okay. So there is a little strategy in there. It isn't just flip flop, bing bang boom. I mean, there's a lot of that, but it's not as maybe as much as maybe we were thinking.
Yeah, because you can go from feigning from ever like not at all to like within the first 5 minutes if you play carelessly.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. Briareos, questions, other comments, other concerns. I mean, you sent me a book on
I think
Monster Hunter, bro.
Hawk hit a lot of the points that I was wanting to hear somebody say. You know,
Okay.
so basically, I can go into Rise not expecting a world experience, but just experiencing playing the game in a new way. You know, and seeing what they might take from Rise and put into the next world game.
Yeah.
And that's equally what they did with the Monster Hunter Tri and Ultimate. They took some of the life changes in that, and that's what made World. So basically, it's gonna make a future better Monster Hunter game.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed.
That's,
Nope. Go ahead. I'm sorry. My bad.
no problem. I'd best describe it as them taking a step back to like kind of how it was with the large flat areas of the old games and going back to Monster Hunter Generations and making the better improvements that some people didn't like. Like I didn't have I didn't like all the hunting arts, so I didn't really like the game. But with the switch skills they used and added for some of them weapons, I find it a major improvement to the gameplay, other than what they did in Generations.
So, my question now becomes, we kind of, which is good. I'm glad, Briareos, I'm glad we could I don't want to say alleviate, but I'm glad we could have a discussion tonight, because there's a lot of those questions that maybe I don't hear some of the other YouTubers asking, discussing, etc. And sometimes I don't know if it's maybe because they're afraid of like backlash from the community or whatever. But I guess whatever. I've never really cared about backlash. So the next question I have to ask then is: we have Monster Hunter World, and we have Monster Hunter Rise here. Now it's coming out on the all major relevant consoles. Relevant consoles. And Briareos, what are your thoughts?
Well, after having this little discussion, I'm definitely gonna get it.
So you
You know,
are
just
you are gonna day one Rise on console.
yes, just for the experience, just to be back in the world, see what's new, what changes they made. You know, just give it a go because I've logged in the series history over 30,000 hours in Monster Hunter franchise. So I pretty much played them all. Uh, and this is just another couple of 3,000 more hours to put in.
um, Hawk.
Yeah.
Before we go tonight, I got just a few questions I want to ask, and of course, I would consider you both to be series veterans. What do you hope? I'm gonna put you on the spot, but feel free to take your time. What do you hope is next for the Monster Hunter series?
I'm hoping for a much more world-like experience over a Rise one, but keeping some aspects of Rise, like how they went through the quests in Rise were much better than how they did in World, with how you'd actually have to hunt the monsters through each rank, learn how much they changed, instead of just hunting every monster once and moving on to the next one.
Okay.
As for some gameplay that I would like to see returning, I'd like to see wyvern riding from Rise was one of the best things to do in the game. Would you agree?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed that when I saw that when you could get on the backs of the monsters and slam them into each other. It did kind of remind me of those. You remember when we'd mount a monster in World and then you'd shoot them with the gun, like the scatter shot or whatever, and they'd go running forward and they'd slam into a wall or into another monster. The wyvern riding, I enjoyed during the fights. I enjoyed that during the fights. I thought that was really cool. You could use the monsters to attack.
Yeah. Use it to attack. And I think it's a much better alternative to what the Clutch Claw became in Iceborne, as it became mandatory in Iceborne.
Briareos. Veggie Elder. We gotta know, what do you want for the next Monster Hunter game? Next big title. Not Rise on consoles or any of that other stuff. For the next big mainstay Monster Hunter title. Lay it on us.
Well, the one thing that World did, I played through it about maybe 15 times. I had two main characters, and every time they did expansion or something or made some changes, I would play through it again on my third character. In between each quest, if you took the time to talk to every NPC, they all had different dialogue. But if you would move on to the next quest, that dialogue would be missing. But the majority of them, when you talk to them, they talked about going back to the old world, going back to the old villages and whatnot, where they came from and everything.
Where
and
we were on the
stuff,
PSP, right?
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that was in World, they will tell you about monsters that was coming in the next DLC. They even mentioned Fatalis not directly but indirectly on, maybe there's a monster out there that we hadn't discovered yet or so, but they always give you a preview of what's to come. So the next Monster Hunter will probably be in the old world, and they're probably going to do a combination of what you're getting, what you had in World and in Rise. You might get the Palamutes or some form of them. We're always going to have the cats. Also, you might have maybe they'll introduce having the option of having both gadgets, clutch call or wirebug, as an option. And another thing they may iterate is crossplay. That might be a next thing because a lot of things are moving into it. And from what I gather, Rise was the first time in Capcom's history that they stopped using the NT engine and they used the RE engine to make the game. So I commend them for changing their formula on graphic wise. So they had to pretty much start the game from scratch, building on a new engine. So what they're gonna do with the next World game, it's gonna be something.
Awesome. Hawk, when it comes to the topic of Monster Hunter Rise, when it comes to 32-year-old Jalissa, Hawk, you are the father. When it comes to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, do you have anything else you want to say to the viewers? Anything else you want to say before the game launches on major consoles?
Sunbreak?
Anything, Sunbreak or Rise, either doesn't matter.
Well, for Sunbreak, other than the new end game and all the brand new skills that they're adding with the monsters they're introducing, which I think is kind of pointless, I think I'm actually going to go up against 3, and I'd like to see a actually completely new continent to the old world, so a new world that we get to hunt on, and we get everything else that he talked about with Palamutes. The choice between Slinger and Wirebug would be cool.
Hell yeah.
Riding monsters. I'll say this since I've been really wanting this since before Fatalis came out in World, is that I'd like to see kind of more of a crossplay with like stories where you get to become a rider and do like a Pokemon and raise up your monsters and then take them out on a hunt, and you have to risk having them die while you hunt for that extra bit of damage.
Interesting. Me like you. Briareos, before we go here tonight, when it comes to 13-year-old Jalissa, you are not the father. What are your thoughts on your final thoughts on Monster Hunter Rise, and what are your final thoughts on the kind of situation that we presented here tonight? I think you and I both walked into this maybe with some pretty heavy negativity about Rise. I still agree that I feel like it's relatively arcadey and relatively easy. That being said, there's probably still there's probably more meat and potatoes here than I initially thought. Briareos, your final thoughts on Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak, and the things we discussed tonight.
The number one deciding factor is that I could cut the attack voices off.
And that's it. Video's over. That's it.
If I couldn't have cut that off, I cannot play a game for 3,000 hours or plus with them constantly saying the thing over and over. Take this, one of those, up yours. Oh no, I could not.
I need to heal. Hold on.
So that helps a lot in my decision making. But going forward in the future with the Monster Hunter franchise, there's one thing I always know with Capcom, with their core team. They're the only team that actually plays their game post-launch. No other developers, actively plays their game. So they're making a game that they want to play. So, you know, what they're coming out with or what they're going to do is they're going to be making a game that they're comfortable playing. And we're just along for the ride. That's why the series has been around for so many years, and they wasn't pretty much catering to what the people wanted. They went with what worked in the lore of Monster Hunter.
Anybody got anything else they want to say?
That's it.
I think I'm good.
Well, awesome. I'm Neil with the Balding Plebs, and I first of all want to give a huge shout out to the Veggie Elder Briareos for joining us once again here on the channel. Briareos, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And of course, massive, massive shout out to Hawk Every for taking personal time out of his incredibly busy day to join us for this Monster Hunter discussion tonight. Hawk, awesome to chat with you again, and awesome to have you on another video here on the channel. Thank you so much for joining us, Hawk.
Glad I could be here with you guys.
You guys, your thoughts in the comments below about Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter Sunbreak, and Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter going forward. Like the video if you enjoyed this open-minded. I know, it's a word we so rarely are allowed to use anymore amongst cancel culture 2023 discussion. And we'll see you damn plebeians right here next time. GG Plebs, you're welcome.